What are we covering in the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War, day 133? The al-Qassam spokesperson Abu Ubaida issued a statement that the hostages are in bad condition, adding that the organization is trying to protect the hostages from the Israeli government. However, the Israeli government and the military appear to be deliberately targeting them. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported that the generators in the Nasser hospital have collapsed as a result of the fighting, adding that 5 patients died as a result of this collapse and that others are in danger. A group calling itself the Rafah Youth distributed messages calling upon Palestinians do not surrender to Hamas's militia, adding that the interest of the movement is to appoint a committee to manage Rafah. There was a shooting attack that occurred in the Re'em junction near Deir. 2 people were killed and 4 were wounded when a Palestinian from the Shuafat refugee camp in East Jerusalem opened fire at them. Hello everyone, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War. It is currently the evening of February 16, 2024 in the United States, the morning of February 17, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, after 5 days ago, the al-Qassam Brigade stated that 5 Israeli hostages were killed in an IDF bombardment and 5 more were injured. Today, al-Qassam spokesperson Abu Ubaida issued a statement that the hostages are in bad condition, adding that the organization is trying to protect the hostages from the Israeli government. However, the Israeli government and the military appear to be deliberately targeting them. In addition to these statements, Abu Ubaida stated that the organization sees it as a Palestinian interest to protect the hostages and calls upon the Israeli government to respect the lives of those who he states are imprisoned by the Hamas movement. Other news relating to the hostages. In a security conference in Munich today, Israeli President Herzog met secretly with the Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed Thani. According to reports, they discussed the hostage deal and ways to try to move it forward. Other news related to the hostages. During the operation the IDF is currently carrying out in the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, medicines with the names of hostages were located, imprinted onto the boxes in different areas in the hospital. According to the IDF, this is currently being investigated. However, the Israeli security establishment believes that this is unrelated to the medical deal that was brokered between Israel and Hamas in the middle of January. As a result of that deal, medicines were supposed to be delivered to the hostages based on their different chronic illnesses. However, Israel never got any proof from Qatar that the hostages actually received any of the medications. Right now, these boxes of medicines were discovered. The IDF is stating this is further proof that hostages were kept in the hospital. However, they still believe that this is unrelated to the medical deal. Moving on to the fighting in the Gaza Strip, there was a barrage of rockets sent from the Gaza Strip targeting the southern parts of Israel today. These targeted primarily the areas of Zikim, Ashkelon, and Chof Ashkelon. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad claimed responsibility for this launching. I note that because it is quite important that Hamas itself has not claimed responsibility for the launching of rockets for quite a while. Also, the last barrage that was launched to this area several days ago was claimed by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Moving to the fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, IDF warplanes reportedly attacked several different Hamas targets, in one case assassinating the deputy commander of Hamas's Savara battalion. In addition, a car was targeted by warplanes in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, presumably in Gaza City. The IDF reported that 3 Hamas operatives were killed. However, it was not reported what the target of this assassination was. In the central parts of the Gaza City, there were intensive bombardments reported in the areas of Deir el-Balah, as well as gun battles that were reported in the eastern parts of the city. In addition to this, there were other bombings that were noted in the adjacent refugee camps. Again, it was not noted specifically in which camps, but presumably this is in the al-Nusrat refugee camp, where the IDF is carrying out some intensive operations. The bulk of the fighting remains in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. In Khan Yunis, the IDF is continuing its operation in the Nasser hospital. This is the 3rd day in a row. Reportedly, the IDF has arrested over 20 Hamas operatives who took part in the October 7th attack. In addition, within the hospital compound, the IDF reportedly uncovered mortars, grenades, and other weaponry. The hospital is continuing to function for the patients inside. However, according to different reports, they have been moved under orders of the IDF to different parts of the hospital, some of these to the basements. In addition, in Khan Yunis, throughout the day, there were a lot of gun battles reported. In some cases, IDF air bombardments were also noted, taking part in the ground offensive. Other news related to the Gaza Strip. Israel's Minister Gantz, who is part of the war cabinet, related today to the month of Ramadan, which is due to begin in a few weeks. He clarified that there will be no humanitarian pauses or ceasefire during that month without the return of the hostages. He related to Rafah as well, stating, and I quote, "Either our hostages will be returned, or we will expand the fighting to Rafah. We will work with our partners, including Egypt, evacuating civilian population to safe areas, and we will act. This is noteworthy because the fact that he states either our hostages will be returned or we will expand the fighting to Rafah is another way that Minister Gantz is possibly indicating that a hostage deal may be a way to postpone the invasion of Rafah. This is Egypt's hope, the hope to some extent in the United States, as well as possibly the hope of Hamas, and this contradicts the desires, at least reportedly, of Prime Minister Netanyahu to first carry out the invasion of Rafah and only then come to a hostage deal. Other news, in his statements earlier today, the al-Qassam spokesperson Abu Ubaidah added, and I quote, "We are continuing to fight across the entire Gaza Strip in the north, center, and south. We manage our engagements with organized tactics that we determine. Thousands of our fighters are spread throughout every front, and we will continue the struggle until the evacuation of every IDF soldier from the Gaza Strip." Other news related to the Gaza Strip, Egypt denied the reports that were published yesterday regarding the compound that is being constructed in the Sinai Peninsula to house and lock down Palestinian refugees who may flee from the Gaza Strip. So as a reminder, yesterday it was reported that the Sinai Foundation for Human Rights has been tracking a compound that Egypt is constructing and surrounding by high concrete walls. According to reports, it is between 13 to 20 square kilometers, that's about 8 square miles. This was also picked up by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, all stating that Egypt is planning this compound in the event that Palestinians flee from Rafah into Egypt in order to make sure they are blockaded and don't go further into Egypt. So again, Egypt is denying these reports as of yesterday. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldier was reported killed in the last 24 hours. The total number of soldiers killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began remains 235. 9 IDF soldiers reported injured in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of IDF soldiers injured since the invasion began to 1,368. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting 112 Palestinians killed in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 28,775. 68,552 Palestinians reported injured in the Gaza Strip, and several thousand are reportedly still buried under the rubble and presumed dead. Moving on to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported today that generators in the Nasser hospital have collapsed as a result of the fighting, adding that this resulted in the death of 5 different patients in different wards. In addition, they added that different patients are currently in danger in the ICU as well as in the neonatal ward. It was also later reported that the IDF is blocking a convoy of the World Health Organization that is trying to deliver food, water, and fuel to the hospital. The IDF spokesperson stated in turn that it was not the IDF forces that damaged the generators in the hospital, and that during the day the IDF soldiers worked to repair the generators once they were reported that they were damaged, and in addition they brought alternative generators to the hospital. IDF spokesperson added that the IDF has brought food supplies and baby food to the hospital, publishing pictures to verify this, and also that the IDF is coordinating with aid agencies to ensure supply of fuel to the hospital. Other news, in Rafah, a video went viral today showing Hamas police officers shooting at a Palestinian, Muhammad el-Raja, as he tried to take food off an aid truck. Riots broke out after this shooting, with tire burning and more confrontations near the Rafah border crossing, with Hamas police trying and failing to gain control of the riots. Importantly, in a message that was circulated in the area, a group calling itself the Rafah Youth distributed messages calling upon Palestinians do not surrender to Hamas's militia, adding that the interest of the movement is to confront them, seize their weapons, and appoint a committee to manage Rafah that includes all Palestinian factions and families not affiliated with Hamas. The message concludes by stating, "Our patience has run out. We are not afraid of death." This is the first time that a local organization that is being reported that is actually trying to challenge Hamas from the ground up in the Gaza Strip. Right now, it is very unclear how big this organization is, or in fact who is running it. However, this is the first time that anyone has published something openly calling on the Palestinian population to challenge the Hamas police. Other news related to the humanitarian situation, UNRWA reported today that queues lasting several hours are building up in the Deir el-Balah area as Palestinians queue up for aid and food distribution. Other news, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant held a briefing today with foreign journalists in which he exposed details of the 12 UNRWA employees who are accused of participating in the October 7th attack, adding to reporters that Israel has substantiated evidence of over 30 UNRWA workers who actively participated in the attack and assisted in kidnappings. He added that 12% of UNRWA's 13,000 employees are connected to terror groups in Gaza in one way or another, and that 1,468 are actively involved in the different terror organizations. His presentation also showed Palestinian Red Crescent employees evacuating injured attackers on October 7th. The Palestinian Red Crescent later responded, stating that the people referenced in Gallant's presentation are not part of the organization. Moving on to an attack that occurred in Israel today, there was a shooting attack that occurred in the Re'em junction near Deir. 2 people were killed and 4 were wounded when a Palestinian from the Shuafat refugee camp in East Jerusalem opened fire at them. The attacker was shot and killed. In a very uncharacteristic move, the Fatah organization that is based in the West Bank, headed by the PA chairman Mahmoud Abbas, praised the attack, called it a natural response to Israel's crimes. Moving on to the West Bank, there was substantial IDF activity reported in several different areas of the West Bank. Most of this activity was associated with that attack that occurred in Israel. In the Al-Shafat refugee camp in East Jerusalem, the police entered the camp with monumental amounts of force in order to arrest the father of the attacker, as well as other people who are suspected may have been involved. Substantial confrontations reportedly erupted. 1 Palestinian was injured. In addition to this, in the Jabal Abu Ruman area of Hebron, the IDF entered in order to arrest other family members of the attacker. Confrontations also erupted there. Reportedly, stun grenades and tear gas was used during those confrontations. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, despite the escalations of the last several days and Hezbollah's threats, today was far calmer, both in regards to rockets and in regards to IDF operations in southern Lebanon. There was a barrage of rockets and missiles sent towards the evening towards Kiryat Shmona. Alarm bells went off also in the areas of Beit Hillel, Kfar Yuval, Mayan Baruch, Tel Chai, Dafna, Goshrim, and Ajar. However, there were no reports about any rockets that actually managed to hit any inhabited areas. Hezbollah also claimed 2 border incidents throughout the day, these including a shooting attack against an outpost and rockets against a Dovev outpost. Hezbollah claimed that 1 IDF soldier was killed in these attacks. However, this was not confirmed anywhere by the IDF or any Israeli news outlets. Regarding IDF activity, there was 1 major attack that was reported in the Kanatra area, targeting Hezbollah military structures. Artillery fire was also noted against the different launching sites in that barrage in the evening. Interestingly, the Amal movement, rather than Hezbollah, announced that 3 of its operatives were killed in Israel's attack in Kanatra. This is noteworthy since Amal has not been an active participant in the war until several weeks ago, when all of a sudden they claimed responsibility for launching several rockets. This may be associated with the ongoing developments in the diplomatic negotiations within southern Lebanon. The Amal movement may be trying to show the flag as well, and in order to have a seat at the negotiating table when the Lebanese government does come to negotiate with the different armed groups in southern Lebanon. Other news too relating to southern Lebanon. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech today in which he stated that the movement will respond with substantial fire to the escalations of the last several days. He added that the attack in Anabatia and Asavana targeted civilians, stating this is a particularly sensitive issue for Hezbollah and that the enemy will realize that it went too far. He issued threats of launching missiles and rockets all across Israel, all the way down to Eilat. Prior to this, Hezbollah's deputy leader, al-Qassam, also gave a speech. He stated, and I quote, "We will not withdraw from our support for Gaza. We will not succumb to Israeli and Western threats and intimidations, and we will not discuss the future of southern Lebanon until the aggression against Gaza ceases." He added that any discussions that are happening about this now are a waste of time, so this is a direct challenge to the ongoing negotiations that France is coordinating between Israel and the government of Lebanon to try to come to a diplomatic solution. The deputy leader of Hezbollah, al-Qassam, is explicitly stating this is a waste of time. We're not going to negotiate anything until the situation in Gaza calms down. In Syria, El Mian reported that rockets were fired from Syria from an area west of the Deir region to the Golan Heights today. Explosions were reportedly heard in the area. The IDF retaliated against the launching sites with artillery fire. Moving on to some of the regional developments, there was a report in the New York Times today stating that Israel is likely behind the attacks that targeted key infrastructure facilities in Iran several days ago. These include explosions that targeted the main gas pipelines in the Faris region and the Burstein area that occurred between Tuesday and Wednesday, and another explosion in a chemical factory in Tehran on Thursday. Both of these attacks stopped the flow of gas and heat to nearly 15% of residents in Iran. The report notes that this constitutes a substantial escalation in the bank of targets in the shadow war between Iran and Israel. That is the war that's going on where both sides are carrying out sabotage against one another but not actually claiming open confrontation. The report states that until now Israel's limited its attacks to key military installations or scientists involved in Iran's nuclear program. However, this is an escalation. Moving on to the Yemeni front, UK MTO reported a missile attack against a ship near the Al Mukha port several hours ago. There was no reports that the ship was actually damaged. In addition, the local Al Misara channel, which is affiliated with the Houthi movement, reported 2 rounds of attacks that the coalition carried out in Yemen, one in the Taif area, one in the El Kuwaisi area. There was no report from the coalition regarding what these attacks actually targeted. Moving on to the political and general trends of the last 24 hours, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, rejected South Africa's appeal for additional injunctions that would be leveled upon Israel in light of the impeding Rafah operation. The ICJ stated that the existing injunctions already apply to the entire Gaza Strip and that they must be honored by Israel with regards to any future developments in the war, including any operations in Rafah. Other political news, Russia issued an invitation today to Hamas, Fatah, and other Palestinian organizations for talks on the Gaza situation and other Middle Eastern issues. The statement related to inter-Palestinian talks and is noted that they may take place in Moscow on February 29th. It is unclear if these talks relate to the future of the Gaza Strip, possible some sort of regional development that Russia wants to have some involvement in, or to reconciliation talks between Fatah and Hamas. Several years ago, Russia tried to host these talks in order to develop a unity government between the two sides. Possibly Russia wants to get involved in that again. It remains to be seen. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, in a meeting with the Jordanian King Abdullah today, French President Macron stated that recognizing a Palestinian state is not a taboo for France, adding that France is willing to play its part in the EU and the UN Security Council to contribute to peace and security in the region. This may relate to reports that were published in the Washington Post several days ago and through other news sources, stating that Washington is working with several different key Arab countries, Jordan being one of them, in order to develop a roadmap for Palestinian statehood. According to the reports from several days ago, this is going to include a timetable and concrete irreversible steps in order to develop a Palestinian state in the future, in the day after the war. So it is possible that Jordanian King Abdullah, on his current international tour, is trying to make sure that all other countries, specifically key actors in the UN Security Council, are going to support this. France today announced that they likely would support such an endeavor. In Israel, I remind everyone this was widely rejected. Prime Minister Netanyahu answered the calls from his hawkish elements within his government to have a special cabinet meeting about this, categorically rejected any notion that a Palestinian state would be imposed upon Israel from afar, saying that this only will happen as a result of negotiations between the sides directly. If you enjoy these reports, please do remember to give a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, send them to anyone you think will benefit from them. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them in the comment section below. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.